This video presents examples of avalanches for you to rate their size on the D scale. These examples assume you have seen the video on how to rate avalanche size using the more visual method. If you haven't, search online for these keywords and watch that video first. Okay, let's rate the first avalanche. Let's rate the size of this slab avalanche in the Purcell Range of the Columbia Mountains. In a few moments, I will ask you to press pause, then follow the method and guidelines in the how-to video. When you're ready to see our rating of this avalanche, press play. This video is intended to enable active learning, and it only works if you rate the avalanches yourself. Since we learn more when we take notes, feel free to take some notes like this as you work through the exercises. The avalanches are numbered like this. Press pause now. While this avalanche is relatively harmless to a skilled backcountry skier with releasable bindings or a skilled snowmobiler on a mountain sled, it could injure a person in street shoes. The avalanche is about 2 to 3 bus lengths long and substantially shorter than a football field, so its length points to a D1. In terms of deposit volume, this avalanche could fill an apartment about a meter deep, but is not close to being able to fill the ground floor of a large house 2 meters deep. Since we're confident in the destructive potential, this avalanche is a D2, according to the interpretation guidelines in the how-to video. This is an avalanche on Mount Hector that deposited onto the Icefields Parkway in Banff National Park. Press pause now. This avalanche could easily destroy a car or wood frame house. Also, it could destroy a large truck, but not a village or 40 hectares of forest. In Google Earth, I measured the avalanche to be about 1.4 kilometers long, but looking towards the start zone in the background of this photo, I would have estimated the length to be about 1 kilometer. This deposit extends a ways to the left of the photo, and part of the deposit has been removed by loaders. It could easily fill a hockey rink or 2 tennis courts at least 3 meters deep, but is not close to filling 4 hockey rinks 4 meters deep. So the volume points to a D3. Since we are confident in the destructive potential, this avalanche is a D4 according to the interpretation guidelines. This is an avalanche at a ski area in the Pyrenees. The slab avalanche stepped down to a deeper failure layer. Press pause now. This avalanche could definitely kill a person. I am doubtful that it could destroy a car, but it could damage one, so I'll show the uncertainty like this. Its length is many bus lengths long and close to the length of a football field. The deposit could fill an apartment many meters deep and the ground floor of a large house 1 to 2 meters deep, so its volume points to a D2. Since we are not confident in the destructive potential, the volume is weighted more. This avalanche is a D2. You can see snowshoe tracks crossing this avalanche slope on Kelso Mountain in Colorado. Press pause now. Looking at the deposit and visualizing the avalanche in motion, this collar avalanche could certainly injure or kill a person. Hard to say if its length is closer to a bus length or football field, so we'll show the uncertainty like this. The deposit is closer to being able to fill the ground floor of a large house 2 meters deep than an apartment 1 meter deep. Since we weigh the volume and destructive potential higher than the length, this avalanche is a D2. 1 person on snowshoes was killed by the avalanche. This photo shows 2 remotely triggered dry slab avalanches in the Selkirk Range of the Columbia Mountains. Let's look at the closer one. Press pause now. In terms of destructive potential, this avalanche could push a person over, but could not bury a person and is unlikely to injure a person, so its destructive potential points to a D1. In terms of length, this avalanche is a couple of bus lengths long, but less than half the length of a football field, so its length is closer to that of a D1. The deposit volume would not fill an apartment 1 meter deep, so its volume points to a D1. Combining the 3 characteristics, this avalanche is a D1. This is a skier-triggered avalanche in the Montse range of the Columbia Mountains. Press pause now. In terms of destructive potential, this avalanche could destroy a car in the terrain trap at the base of the slope, but not a large truck. In the photo, the avalanche appears to be about 2 football fields long and substantially shorter than 1 kilometer, so its length points to a D2. The deposit looks like it could fill a hockey rink a couple of meters deep, but not 4 hockey rinks 4 meters deep, so combining the characteristics, this avalanche is a D3. This avalanche in the Purcell Range was remotely triggered by the skiers while they were on the ridge. Press pause now. While this avalanche is unlikely to injure a skilled snowmobiler on a mountain sled or a skilled backcountry skier with releasable bindings, it could injure a person in street shoes. Its length is about 2 bus lengths long and substantially shorter than a football field. The deposit is closer to being able to fill an apartment 1 meter deep than the ground floor of a large house 2 meters deep. Since we are confident in the destructive potential, this avalanche is a D2. This avalanche at Rogers Pass in the Selkirk Range has been snowed on, making the deposit harder to assess. Press pause now. This avalanche could certainly injure a person in street shoes, but it is questionable whether it could bury a car, so we'll show the uncertainty like this. Its length is multiple bus lengths long and almost as long as a football field, but not close to 1 kilometer. The deposit could fill an apartment many meters deep and probably the ground floor of a large house a couple of meters deep. Because of the uncertainty, that is, limited confidence in the destructive potential, we weigh the deposit volume more. This avalanche is a D2. This avalanche at Rogers Pass in the Selkirk Range has been snowed on, making the deposit harder to assess. Press pause now. This avalanche in the Canadian Rockies started as a point release, which triggered a slab avalanche. The only scale in the photo are the exposed rocks, which are not as good as trees or people. Press pause now. The avalanche could certainly injure a person, but it does not appear that it could destroy or bury a car. It is about as long as 1 or 2 football fields, but not close to 1 kilometer. The deposit could probably fill the ground floor of a large house a couple of meters deep, but not a hockey rink a couple of meters deep. This avalanche is a D2. Here is another avalanche from the Pyrenees. Press pause now. This avalanche could easily destroy a large truck and substantially more than 4 hectares of forest, that is 400 by 100 meters. It might be able to destroy close to 40 hectares, that is 600 meters by 600 meters. Without better scale reference objects in the photo, it is hard to be sure if the destructive potential is closer to a D4 or to a D5. From the top of the avalanche in the upper right of the photo to the leftmost extent, it appears to be closer to 2 kilometers than 3 kilometers long. The area covered appears to be several football fields, but because the deposit is spread so widely, it is likely substantially less than 8 meters deep. Overall, the deposit is closer to 4 or a few more than 4 hockey rinks 4 meters deep. Because there is uncertainty in the destructive potential, the deposit volume carries more weight. This avalanche is a D4. This photo shows a slab avalanche on a gentle slope. Press pause now. In terms of destructive potential, this avalanche could push a person over and possibly injure a person, so we'll sit on the fence regarding the destructive potential. In terms of length, this avalanche is many bus lengths long and about as long as a football field. The deposit appears quite shallow. It could fill an apartment at least 1 meter deep, but not the ground floor of a large house 2 meters deep. Since we have more confidence in the deposit volume than in the destructive potential, this avalanche is a D1. This is a wet avalanche in the Canadian Rockies that was triggered by cornice fall on a warm spring day. The skier and his friends were taking a lunch break and sitting on their packs. Press pause now. The wet avalanche was slow enough so the skiers were able to run away from it. The wet avalanche could certainly have injured a person who did not move away. Its length appears to be that of a few football fields, but substantially shorter than 1 kilometer. Hard to say which it is closer to, so we'll show the uncertainty like this. The deposit could fill an apartment at least 1 meter deep, but is not close to being able to fill the ground floor of a large house a couple of meters deep. Since we're confident in the destructive potential, this avalanche is a D2. Is this 1 or 2 wet avalanches on the moraine? Let's treat it as 1 avalanche. Press pause now. This avalanche could easily bury or kill a person, and the wet avalanche could destroy a car, but not a large truck. Its length is about as long as a football field and not close to 1 kilometer. The deposit extends out of the left side of the photo. It could fill the ground floor of a large house well over 2 meters deep and a hockey rink or 2 tennis courts a couple of meters deep. This avalanche is a D3 because of the destructive potential and deposit volume. This photo shows a remotely triggered dry slab avalanche in the Pyrenees. Press pause now. In terms of destructive potential, this avalanche could push a person over, but could not bury the person and is unlikely to injure the person. In terms of length, it is about 2 bus lengths long and less than half the length of a football field, so its length points to a D1. The deposit volume would not fill an apartment 1 meter deep, so its volume points to a D1. Combining the 3 characteristics, this avalanche is a D1. This is a rider-triggered avalanche just outside the Lake Louise skier in Banff National Park. Press pause now. In terms of the destructive potential, this avalanche could certainly injure a person while it dragged them along the rocky bed surface, but it could not fully bury or destroy a car or a wood frame house, so its destructive potential points to a D2 avalanche. In terms of length, it appears to be roughly 4 bus lengths long and about half as long as a football field. Since its length could be either that of a D1 or a D2, we'll show the uncertainty like this. You can't see all the deposit in the photo, but in terms of deposit volume, it could fill an apartment at least a few meters deep and the ground floor of a large house perhaps 1 to 2 meters deep. So its deposit volume is closer to a D2 than a D1. Considering the 3 characteristics, this is a D2 avalanche. Here is another dry slab avalanche from the Pyrenees. In the middle of the photo, you can see old ski tracks in the bed surface. Press pause now. This avalanche could easily bury or kill a person, and the avalanche could destroy a car in the terrain trap at the bottom of the slope. It is about 2 to 3 football fields long and shorter than 1 kilometer. Some of the deposit is piled up in the terrain trap at the bottom of the slope. It could fill the ground floor of a large house well over 2 meters deep and a hockey rink or 2 tennis courts a couple of meters deep. This avalanche is a D3 because of the destructive potential and deposit volume. So far, that is all the examples we have prepared for you to rate using the more visual method. We hope to add more by November 2020. You can add comments on whichever social media platform you saw this on, or you can add comments on Vimeo. My collaborators and I look forward to your thoughts on the rating method, the interpretation guidelines, and this exercise.